Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Counterpoint Podcast. My name is Maurice Kleina, and I'll be again your host for this episode. And today we have a really interesting topic on our hands. We're talking about the U.S. market, a market that I'm one of the primary analysts on, and with me I have Jeff Fieldhack, who is the director of North America. Hey, Jeff, how's it going?
Hello, Maurice. All is well.
Awesome. So I mean, we cover the North America market, in a lot of detail by channels. We look at all the promotions that are happening, and we cover everything from connected devices, smartphones, pet trackers, the connected golf equipment as well. So I hope we have a pretty good session on what we can, kind of show the audience today.
Yeah, it's exciting times, and with 5G and lots of moving parts, yeah, certainly a lot of things to talk about.
Yeah, and to kind of set the stage, with the pandemic, 2020 was a pretty tough year, and for all of us, really, for the smartphone market as well. But however, in Q1, we're really seeing some recovery in the market again, and of course, this is a kind of a high bump because Q1 2020 was a pretty low month, but Q1 2021 looks to be about between 15 and 20% year over year growth. So there's actually some tremendous rebound in this market coming. However, you know. What there are a lot of other things that are happening too, such as component shortages, LG's exit from the smartphone market, and even how 5G is going. So there's a lot to talk about here. So let's get right into it. And first, I kind of want to touch upon this high end segment that we have in the U.S. market. So, Apple and Samsung clearly dominating the market with their high end flagships, the iPhone 12 coming out, the S21. Um, what do you think are the key drivers for this premium segment for the U.S. market?
Yeah, so in kind of back step to Q4, which is usually normally dominated by flagships, it was even more so dominated by Apple and Samsung and the flagships. The US market was down year over year in Q4, high single digit percentage, yet Apple was up 15% and Samsung was up 5%. And I think the driver was pent up demand on the iOS side for a 5G device. You also had S21 and Samsung flagships, and then Samsung introducing A51, A71. So Galaxy's 5G trickling down into lower price tiers. Then on the carrier and channel side, all carriers knew 5G iPhones were coming end of the year. So they planned their entire years and marketing spend around this event. So all of them had great deals out the gate. iPhone 12's free or nearly free, big trade-in plans, and they all went very aggressive. So that really helped premium, really helped Apple. Apple gained their highest market share ever in the U.S. market. And then there were also carriers. AT&T went very aggressive. They weren't just doing the normal, hey, come to AT&T and switch, and then we'll give you this special promo. They were doing it for the base. The base got the same deals as switchers. So this was a bit of a change, a very aggressive change. And AT&T went from a very low upgrade percentage to a much higher upgrade percentage. So this really drove sales. And finally, I'd add that the premium segment was helped by media bundles. T-Mobile has Netflix, Verizon Disney Plus, AT&T HBO Max, and they all want to lock in subscribers into premium unlimited plans with these media bundles. And during a year of COVID, the US still not fully open for travel and that. So these bundles with media were very popular since we're still, sitting around watching a lot of TV.
Yeah, I know. I'm for sure doing that right now. And just to touch on one other thing, that you mentioned earlier, this pent up demand, we not only saw that in Q4, but even early on in Q1. I think this contributed to some of this growth that we had in Q1, even in January and February, where we saw Apple's market share and volume still being maintained because pent up demand spilled over from Q4 into Q1.
Yeah, exactly. I think a couple things. It was the later launch, November, December, so some of it spilled over, but also it's clear the iPhone 12 is a strong upgrade and will be a strong year. Yeah, throughout the year, and yeah, as you said, Q1 off to a good start, and then good comps to March started kind of the decline in 2020. So yeah, year over year, Q1 is very strong, and we've already seen that Verizon up 5-ish%, AT&T up, 30-ish% with their very aggressive promos during the first quarter.
Right, and let's switch to the prepaid segment now. We talked a little bit about the premium, and when we talk about that, it's generally the postpaid segment. But when we talk about more mid-tier devices or even budget devices, so anything really below $250, around $200, what has demand been like there? And are we seeing any aggressive promotions? Of course, the U.S. has tax season right now, so it's a big driver for growth, particular in prepaid. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, for speaking about Q4 and then maybe early into Q1, I think prepaid struggled a bit. And this is very different from the norm. Usually, when there's a struggling economy, high unemployment, there is usually a shift from postpaid to prepaid, lower end service plans. But this was different this go around when we've had, a struggling economy and high unemployment. And I think it's first it started with the carriers and broadband providers forming the Keep America Connected plan, where they wouldn't drop consumers if they hadn't played or they missed a payment or two. So that kept subscribers on postpaid plans. And then we also found, hey, when the stimulus checks hit the market, people used it to buy mobile devices and mobile services. So, this somewhat started to help the low end of the market. And then, as you mentioned, tax season, that it was a little later this year, end of February and into March. That's when we really saw the low end of the market then really rebound. And we saw aggressive promotions, iPhone SE at $50, many, 250, $200 devices for free, or yeah, very, very low point of sale pricing. So this really helped the prepaid market snap back. And one other comment I'd make about the prepaid market, it is looking more like the postpaid market in that in the past, prepaid devices were not subsidized. So they were bought, on its own merit. And, the price tiers were very diverse and spread out, but it really focused on like below $99. And now with the big promos for the switchers, and these switch devices are higher end devices. They're 200 to 250. They're like the LG Stylos and the iPhone SE. And so what we're seeing is kind of a higher end lift to the prepaid market. And I think this will continue as the prepaid carriers want to add, 5G and move the prepaid base onto 5G devices.
That's actually a perfect segue to my next question because I kind of want to know a little bit more about 5G devices and how they're moving down these price tiers, right? So in the beginning, when 5G first launched, we had these devices over $1,000, the S10 5G. They've slowly moved down price tiers, right? And we had devices like the A51, A71 that helped drive down prices. And even now, I think I'm just on the T-Mobile website right now. There are three devices that are actually sub $300. So the OnePlus N10 5G, the new Samsung A32 5G, and also a Moto device, the Moto 5G Ace. So these are all moving down, really these price tiers. What is really the lowest you've seen though? Speaking with like promotions and things that are happening in the market.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's not quite the China market where we see many 5G devices at like the 170 or 175 price, but certainly coming down into the 300s. And the thing about the US market is it's a promotion marketing all in market. So we do see promos. You mentioned the Moto One 5G Ace. It's at $130 on the AT&T prepaid website. So I think that's the low mark, $130. But there are so many promos for switchers to get on a 5G device. And you also mentioned the Samsung Galaxy A32. That is T-Mobile's big push with their 5G lead to get lots of switchers. I think they're going to offer that one at very low price or even free for switchers, uh, maybe throughout most of 2021. So even though maybe the U.S. market's mainly in the 300s is kind of the low level, there are always promos that are much lower for 5G devices.
Yeah, certainly. We're seeing a lot of that uptake. I agree, and touching on something kind of similar again with more of this lower tier $250 smartphones that we're seeing. Recently we had a big announcement from LG, and it announced its formal exit from the smartphone market. The Huawei sanctions had a big impact on things as well for the US market. What are some OEMs do you think that could fill that space now of that LG has left with this sub $250 segment? The Stylo 6, the K51 were really big drivers, not only for LG but also the prepaid market. So who do you see taking that gap?
Yeah, in within the prepaid channel, so this kind of sub $250 price point you mentioned, if Samsung wants to go for a land grab for market share, which I highly suspect they will do, I think Samsung can take 40 to 50% of this LG void. But there are lots of others that are primed and really focused on this space that also will take significant share, but not as probably as much as Samsung. And these are players such as Motorola, OnePlus, TCL, ZTE, and then probably to a lesser extent Blue, which is seen in national retail and will look to be picking up some of the LG SKUs there. One other point I would make about LG and their loss to the market is, yeah, most of their volumes were dominated in the prepaid and lower tier price tiers, but they were a valuable partner to the operators in the postpaid channels because they were always early with technology. They were early OEM bringing technologies through the years, Wi-Fi calling, carrier aggregation, and then more recently 5G millimeter wave. They were an early test partner to US carriers, a valued partner, and that part will be a big void even in the higher end where their volumes weren't great, but they were still a very valuable partner.
Right, and I think a combination actually of who can provide the first sub 250 sub $200 5G device with this type of partnership potential could really make it big in the market basically.
I agree. And also LG, they brought in marketing money, so they're like big enough that where they did that. And also for these big promos in the prepaid, which are big volumes when you have a free Switch device or something, LG was able to ramp volumes and be a sufficient supplier, and yeah, was very much relied upon. Mhm. Yeah, I think it's of a tale of both of those for sure. But I think so far the answer is very tight, but rarely affecting overall sales. And by what I mean by that is Apple, Samsung, Premium. The supply seems good. I think they're such a valuable large player. They got their share of components and had their orders in and are sufficient to date and through the first half of the year. The prepaid, the low end of the market, is where we are seeing already shortages and empty pegs. And this is because the 4G SoCs, there's the shortages of that. Many OEMs, knowing there were shortages, yeah, they went with 5G devices over lower margin 4G devices. And then, uh, yeah, the second, third tier players that are playing in the low end, yeah, they're the ones that are hit first. But what I mean by overall sales haven't been affected is the low end of the market and the prepaid channels, they're they're less brand and model loyal, whereas an iPhone 12 or S21 person that wants to upgrade, they know what they're going to upgrade to, and they're waiting on it. If there was a shortage on the high end, they would probably defer the purchase. But on the low end, there are other choices. There's another low end device that's on promo. So if the Stylo 6 or some A series that have been in serious shortages, they'll just simply choose another device. That could change if things get worse. But as of now, yeah, it's very. I would call it very tight, but not yet affecting overall sales.
Interesting. So I actually wanted to pick your brain on something else. You're actually, and I didn't mention this in the beginning, but you're really the go-to person that we have for the refurb market as well. So you do a lot of research on what's happening for refurbs, and of course, like you mentioned before, a lot of these carriers sweeten the deals with trade-ins for the new iPhones and even S21 devices that we're seeing, which has created a lot more customers trading in new device or old devices to get new 5G phones. Can you tell us a little bit about how the refurb market actually performed in 2020 and how things are looking now in Q1? And also one of the questions that we often get is like, well, with this component shortage, does this create opportunity for the refurb market?
Yeah, the refurb market's super interesting space in itself. During COVID, all used markets seemed to uh, get much higher demand. So, the housing market, used cars, used RVs, all were very strong during 2020 in this COVID world. It was same on the smartphone side for refurbished and secondary market. However, so the demand was really high, but since new device sales were down 10%, the supply of secondary markets was low. So overall, the refurbished market suffered in 2020, not because of demand, but because of supply. Kind of fast forward to Q4 and Q1 of 2021, high end devices have been really selling well. There's lots of iPhone 12 purchasers that handed in an old iPhone, same on the Samsung side. So going through the system, there's a large supply coming into the secondary market, but we need to wait to Q2 and Q3 for those secondary devices to really enter the secondary market. So the short answer is it's the secondary market suffered in 2020, but it's really picking up here, and especially will pick up in the second half of 2021.
Interesting. And looking again into the future now, with every year we have seen some spec upgrades. We this I mean, last year really was a year of higher refresh rates that we're seeing. 5G being included, of course, for connectivity. Um, what types of other key trends are you seeing in terms of specs, like battery capacity, flash storage, display size, or anything else that we're seeing continue trending in the U.S. market right now?
Yeah. First of all, I'd mention that this trickle down of specs from the high end to the low end has accelerated. It used to take 2 to 3 years for a high end spec to trickle down into the entry space. And now it's dropping to 18 months, and even for some specs, 1 year. So it's much, much faster adoption throughout the portfolio. I would bring up first is the camera technology that's been very fast to trickle down through all price tiers. And this is moving from single to now double, triple, quad cameras. The low light improvements, both on the hardware side and the software side, AI. Used to improve camera functionality. Zooming capabilities is a big brag within marketing. So I would say that is the first spec that I see very interesting. Um, on the display side, at the beginning of 2020, 40% of smartphones sold had a display under 6 inches. Now, fast forward to today, that figure is only about 10%. So, 6+ inch smartphone, larger display, that is the norm. That's been a huge trend that's been going on for years, but it's really significant now that such a high percentage of devices are now larger than 6 inch displays. And there's also this conversion continues more OLEDs into the market, much more expensive, higher end displays. The other item I'd mention that's interesting on the spec side is batteries. Um, of course, larger displays, larger footprint, larger batteries, but equally is the impact of fast charging. This 50% charge in a matter of minutes, 15, 20 minutes, that has been a game changer and has been really the uptake of that from consumers. Yeah, very promising. And finally, I'd mention on the memory, the NAND of low prices. OEMs have chosen to spec up the memory configurations on devices, and yeah, I think a trend of less SD cards and just more onboard memory has been a trend, supporting videos and photos and that. And yeah, we've seen that trend continue. And now we're getting into terabits. So yeah, we expect that to continue. Uh, uh, Much higher memory configurations and onboard memory through 2021.
Yeah, I think one of the standouts for me was really this fast charging, and how that really changes a consumer's behavior with a smartphone. So you don't need to charge your phone overnight anymore. You can literally plug it in the morning, as you make your coffee, do your breakfast, and you have enough charge for your day. So it really, I think, changes the way that we interact with our devices. And I hope to see more of how this behavior change can affect things in the future as well.
Yeah, and for years we've been talking about Qi charging mats, desks, and Starbucks, and libraries, and on buses, and yeah, we've been talking about it for 15 years, but it's expensive. It's not as efficient, and with these fast charging, boy, I think it's yeah changing the focus of OEMs because it's so compelling to get a charge, in 15 minutes. So yeah, it's changing user behavior too.
Right. And Jeff, I know we talked about a lot of topics and we could go on and on. I just had one more thing, particularly because right now it's earnings season. All the carriers are announcing, all the OEMs are announcing their earnings. Can you talk to us a little bit about what operators are doing currently, what's happening on their side, how's 5G shaping up, and anything you can mention out of the news that we've seen so far.
Yeah, 2021 will is certainly now 5G battle is on, and the highlight is T-Mobile is leading. They have this nationwide 600 megahertz. They also, with the Sprint merger, got Sprint's 2.5 gigahertz spectrum. So they're basically the only mid-band carrier in the U.S. They also have some millimeter wave assets. So they have this lead through 2021 on coverage and performance with this mid-band spectrum, and look for them to be super aggressive. We already mentioned this free 5G upgrade in the Samsung A32. Look for that to continue pretty much through the entire year. But Verizon and AT&T are not just sitting around. They do have their low band via dynamic spectrum sharing that they have, and they're also doubling their millimeter wave assets, especially attacking the NFL cities. And then they're aggressive on the C band. They were both huge purchasers of C band, but that will be a 2022 story before they get that spectrum up and ready. But that will be more of a battle than talking 2022 when that mid-band spectrum is available. The other item I'll end with is with this 5G capacity, all of the major U.S. operators are focused on fixed wireless access now. They will use their mid-band and millimeter wave assets as a new option for broadband and really try to monetize the billions of dollars they've spent on spectrum. So that will be another other interesting area, fixed wireless access that we'll be tracking here through 2021.
Yeah, these are all certainly topics I think we could go in depth in another episode, perhaps. But for now, Jeff, I want to thank you for coming on to the podcast. This has been super informative, and yeah, hope to see you again.
Hey, thanks, Maurice.
Of course. And thanks everyone for listening again. As always, you can find this podcast on our website, counterpointresearch.com. We're also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, and others. So until next time, thanks again, everyone, and take care.